TechDaily.ai, your source for technical information. This deep dive is sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyperconverged and VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox cluster, AI servers, SA365, a turnkey security appliance, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com. Okay, so today we're talking data privacy. What it really boils down to is giving you, the individual, a say and, well, some visibility into the personal info collected about you. It really wasn't that long ago that companies kind of operated behind closed doors with all this data.
That's exactly right. But we're seeing a massive shift now. There's this growing wave of data privacy regulations, and it's really forcing companies to be much more transparent. They basically have to be upfront about the data they collect, what they use it for, and crucially, they often can't just share your info for marketing without your explicit okay.
Which makes total sense, doesn't it? We've all heard those nightmare stories about data getting misused, leading to identity theft, or, all sorts of financial trouble.
Exactly. So these robust data privacy rules, they're there to provide a necessary check, really, holding companies accountable for safeguarding your data, being open about how it's used, and respecting what you want.
So it's really moved beyond just companies ticking a legal compliance box.
Oh, absolutely. In 2025, data privacy is fundamental. It's about building trust, ensuring security, and just, well, running a responsible digital business. It's a major priority now, way beyond just the legal minimums.
Okay, let's unpack this then. What are the key trends really shaping data privacy in 2025? And, what does it all mean for us in our daily digital lives? That's our mission for this deep dive. Let's get into it. First up, the global regulatory landscape.
Right. So the EU's GDPR back in 2018, that was a real watershed moment. It set a new global standard, giving people significantly more control over their personal information. And what's really interesting is the ripple effect. We're seeing loads of other countries across Asia, Latin America, Africa, drafting their own GDPR-style laws now, trying to protect their citizens' data better. It fundamentally shifted that power dynamic, Companies had to start thinking about data collection, not just technically, but as a matter of individual rights. It impacts everything from product design to, well, marketing.
So it's like a domino effect, really. And it's not just theoretical, is it? There are actual teeth behind these rules.
Definitely. That massive GDPR fine against Meta in 2023, what was it, $1.2 billion for data transfers to the U.S. without proper safeguards. That really showed the real-world impact and the stricter enforcement we're seeing. It wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It signaled, new era where these regulations have serious bite. Cross-border data transfers now need real justification. Otherwise, the financial hit can be enormous. And these laws give consumers rights, like the ability to access their data, ask for corrections, or even demand deletion.
And it gets even tougher when you're dealing with really sensitive stuff, right?
Precisely. For industries like healthcare or finance, the rules are even stricter. You've got HIPAA in the U.S. for patient health info constantly being updated with tougher rules. And in Europe, finance firms have things like PSD2, setting really high security standards for banking data.
Okay, so the big takeaway here seems to be data privacy isn't optional anymore. It's becoming heavily regulated pretty much everywhere. Now let's switch focus to us, the consumers. How is all this actually changing our power, our control over our own info?
Well, these new laws directly empower you. They grant you more rights over the personal data companies collect. Like we mentioned, you can now more easily access everything a company holds on you. And what's key here is if you find something wrong or out of date, you actually have the right to demand they fix it, or even just wipe that data completely from their systems.
That really feels like a significant shift in who holds the cards.
It is. And consumer awareness about data privacy, it's skyrocketing. People are getting much smarter about their digital footprints, demanding more transparency, more control. This awareness is pushing us away from those old, all or nothing data sharing policies. Now, companies increasingly need to offer granular consent.
Meaning you can pick and choose.
Exactly. You can choose specifically what types of data you're okay with sharing and which activities you want to opt out of. More fine-grained control.
So hopefully fewer of those ridiculously long privacy policies written in dense legalese.
Ideally, yes. The trend is definitely towards clear, plain language. Explaining data use simply. Those days of intentionally confusing legal documents, well, they should be fading. Using visuals, maybe interactive elements, simple explanations, that's becoming necessary so the average person actually understands what they're clicking yes to.
And what if someone decides they just want out completely, like erase me from your system?
That's the right to be forgotten. It's a really crucial part of many regulations. It legally backs your right to ask companies to delete your personal data entirely if you want, which means businesses need solid processes to actually do that thoroughly. Remove every trace upon request. No half measures. Think of it like asking a library to completely shred your borrowing history. Poof, gone.
That is a powerful right, and especially critical when we think about protecting kids online.
Oh, absolutely. When it comes to children's data, the absolute strictest standards apply. Laws like COPPA in the U.S. mandate explicit, verifiable parental consent before any data collection happens. And there are very specific protections about how kids' sensitive info is handled, used, and secured by any online service.
It sounds like our whole relationship with our data is becoming more fluid, more responsive.
Exactly. Your consent preferences aren't set in stone anymore. You should be able to update your privacy settings, change permissions over time, easily. Companies need good preference management systems that let you tweak your choices whenever your comfort level changes.
This all sounds like good progress, but are there actual technologies helping companies manage all these new, tougher requirements?
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting, actually. We're seeing these things called privacy-enhancing technologies, or PETs, emerge. One example is differential privacy. This lets companies analyze data for insights, but keeps individual user data anonymous.
How does that work?
It adds a carefully calculated amount of mathematical noise to the data set.
Yeah.
It slightly tweaks values, so you can't link anything back to one person, but you can still get meaningful results from the whole group. You might hear the term epsilon. That's basically the measure of how much privacy is preserved versus utility.
Huh, that's clever. Balancing analysis and privacy. What else is out there?
Another really cool one is secure multi-party computation, or MPC. This lets different organizations analyze data together without actually sharing their raw data with each other. Everyone's data stays encrypted and private, but they can still compute results across the combined data sets using some pretty advanced crypto. So, collaboration without exposure.
So different companies could pool insights without ever seeing each other's sensitive customer lists, for example. That sounds incredibly useful.
It really is. Then you have homomorphic encryption. Normally, you have to decrypt data to do anything with it, right?
Right?
Homomorphic encryption lets you perform calculations on the encrypted data itself without decrypting it first. It's a game changer for using the cloud or other, let's say, untrusted environments securely. The encryption barrier never has to come down for processing. There are different flavors, like fully or partially homomorphic, offering different capabilities.
That really does sound like a major leap for cloud security and privacy.
It is. And one more. Zero-knowledge proofs. This is a way for one party to prove to another that something is true, like I am over 18 or I have this credential, without revealing any other information besides that specific fact.
So verifying things without spilling all the details.
Exactly. Useful for proving credentials, account ownership, things like that, without exposing the underlying sensitive data itself.
Okay, so these technologies are providing the practical tools needed to meet these stricter privacy demands. Now let's pivot a bit. Let's talk AI. How is artificial intelligence itself impacting privacy management?
Right. AI has this significant dual role. It's both a potential privacy challenge and a powerful tool for improving privacy management. For instance, AI can be used for what's called predictive privacy management. By looking at past privacy incidents, AI algorithms can spot patterns and actually predict potential future risks before they happen.
So AI is helping to spot potential problems before a breach occurs. That's an interesting twist.
Absolutely. It allows companies to be proactive, adjust policies, beef up safeguards, fix weaknesses immediately instead of just reacting after the fact. And on the consumer side, natural language processing, that's a branch of AI, can take those dense legal privacy policies and translate them into simple, everyday language.
Making them actually understandable.
Exactly. Empowering people to really grasp what they're agreeing to, which is, fundamental for ethical privacy.
It definitely feels like privacy and AI are becoming increasingly tangled up together.
They really are. And these privacy trends are pushing organizations hard towards prioritizing data anonymization, making sure their AI models are trained securely and ethically. Balancing AI's power with privacy rules is crucial for keeping trust and preventing misuse.
Now, with all these shifts in the privacy world, it must be changing the jobs people do within companies, right? Who's typically handling all this complexity?
That's a great question. And yeah, it's a clear trend for 2025. Organizations are moving away from having just a dedicated chief privacy officer, a CPO focused solely on privacy. Instead, we're seeing more cross-functional roles emerge. People whose jobs cover privacy plus other critical areas like trust, governance, risk, and compliance. You often hear that called GRC, and even AI ethics and management now, too.
GRC, that's governance, risk, and compliance, right? Makes sense to fold privacy into that bigger picture. It's becoming a more integrated function. We've seen big names like Google, MasterCard, Zoom, IBM kind of tweaking their CPO type roles to formally include these AI oversight duties and other compliance areas. And the IAPP, that's the International Association of Privacy Professionals, they reported that over 80% of privacy pros took on additional responsibilities in 2024. And the expectation is that trend's just going to continue, maybe even speed up as AI management practices mature.
Wow. So if you're in privacy now, you're likely wearing quite a few different hats. Okay, we've hit privacy regulations hard, but what about regulating AI itself?
That's another area moving surprisingly fast. If you think back to, say, the early 2000s, 2010s, the legislative reaction to personal data processing was, well, slow. It really wasn't until GDPR in 2016 that lawmakers fully woke up to the risks of just collecting and using personal info without many limits.
Right.
What's striking now with AI, especially after things like ChatGPT burst onto the scene in late 2022, is that regulators seem to be moving much, much quicker.
So they're trying not to make the same mistake of waiting too long this time. It certainly looks that way. In the time since, we've seen a growing number of specific AI regulations and laws being introduced. And in 2025, we expect that momentum to keep building. More businesses are going to have to deal with these new AI rules. As of late 2024, I think 6 U.S. states already had some form of AI regulation active, with 3 more working on it. Colorado's AI Act, the CAIA, is the big one, pretty comprehensive. It takes effect in early 2026, but companies developing or using AI will likely need a lot of lead time to get ready for it.
And the EU is also pushing ahead hard on AI regulation.
Absolutely. The EU's AI Act is also set to fully come into force in 2026, but key parts are actually kicking in during 2025.
Right.
For example, the bans on AI systems considered unacceptable risk. Things like social scoring, certain biometric categorization, scraping facial data indiscriminately, those bans are due in February 2025. Then in August 2025, requirements for general-purpose AI models come online. Things like risk assessment, documentation about training data, security measures, big obligations for developers.
Definitely sounds like 2025 is a pivotal year for AI regulation taking shape globally. Okay, let's zoom in specifically on the United States. What's the situation with data privacy laws here?
Yeah, in the U.S., the really clear trend is states passing their own comprehensive data privacy laws. We saw 7 states do it in 2023 and another 7 in 2024. If that pace keeps up through 2025, we could genuinely see over half of all U.S. states having their own distinct privacy regulations.
Wow, over half.
Yeah, and with that many states covered, it becomes increasingly likely that most businesses operating nationally will fall under at least some of these state laws. So instead of one U.S. standard, we're getting this growing patchwork quilt of different state rules.
Which sounds like a much more complicated legal map for businesses trying to operate across the country.
Exactly. And this explosion of state laws also seems to be making a single comprehensive federal data privacy law less likely anytime soon. States like California, which already have strong protections, are pretty resistant to a potentially weaker federal bill that might override what they offer their residents. The more states act, the less momentum there seems to be for one national standard.
That definitely sounds like a headache for companies doing business nationwide.
It really does. Complying with one federal law would obviously be simpler than trying to track and follow, potentially dozens of different state laws, each with its own little quirks and requirements. Businesses really need to keep a close eye on the state level.
So vigilance at the state level is key. Now, we've talked regulations, we've talked consumer rights. How is this stuff actually playing out on the ground in practice?
Well, 2025 might just be the year that subject rights requests, or SRRs, really move into the spotlight. Yeah, these are the formal requests individuals make to use their data rights, like accessing their info, correcting it, deleting it, that sort of thing. Data from 2023 showed the average organization got around 3,000 SRRs that year, and that number was even higher in North America.
3,000? That's a pretty significant volume for companies to handle.
It is. And with 8 new state privacy laws kicking in during 2025, even more organizations will be legally required to process these SRRs. Plus, as people just become more aware of their rights under all these laws, we're almost certainly going to see the number of requests climb even higher. So businesses need to gear up for potentially a lot more of these. Things like cookie banners for consent management, they're very visible. SRRs often happen more behind the scenes. So I think many organizations might be caught off guard by just how much work is involved in handling these requests properly and on time.
Right. It sounds like SR management is going to be a major operational focus for a lot of companies in 2025.
I think it has to be.
Okay, finally then, let's talk enforcement. Are we expecting these privacy regulations to have more bite in 2025? More teeth?
Absolutely. The clear expectation for 2025 is a definite step up in enforcement, regulatory, sector-specific, even private lawsuits. Like we said, 8 new state privacy laws are coming online. You can bet the attorneys general in those states will be actively looking to enforce them. California and Texas are ones to watch particularly closely. They're signaling they won't just let these laws sit on the books.
So the regulators are making it clear they're serious this time.
Exactly. California's Privacy Protection Agency, the CPPA, already announced several investigative sweeps in 2024. Every sign points to that continuing in 2025. And California is still the only U.S. state so far that's actually handed out financial penalties under its main privacy law, the CCPA. Companies like Sephora, DoorDash, Tilting Point Media have all been fined.
And Texas is signaling intent too, you mentioned.
Yes. While Texas hadn't issued fines under its main new Privacy Act by late 2024, the AG's office there has been very public about its commitment to enforce it. They have already gone after an AI company for deceptive practices and fined TikTok under a different act protecting kids' data. So the actions show they're ready to move on privacy issues.
And it's not just the official regulators getting more active, is it? You mentioned lawsuits too.
That's right. The plaintiffs' bar lawyers bringing lawsuits, they've been increasingly using older laws, like the Video Privacy Protection Act, VPPA, and state wiretapping laws to sue companies using tracking pixels on their websites. California, Arizona, Florida have seen a lot of these wiretapping cases. There was a court ruling in Massachusetts that might slow things down a bit there, but generally we expect more of these kinds of lawsuits.
And we can't forget GDPR enforcement in Europe still going strong.
Oh, definitely not. GDPR enforcement has kept up a serious pace. As of November 2024, something like over 5.3 billion euros in penalties had been issued across more than 2,200 fines. So the message is pretty clear. The risks for not complying are real, they're substantial, and they keep growing.
Well, it is abundantly clear that data privacy in 2025 is just this constantly shifting, increasingly critical landscape for everyone, individuals and businesses alike.
Indeed. We've covered a lot today. That rising tide of regulations globally, consumers getting more power and awareness, those new privacy-enhancing techs coming online, the changing job descriptions for privacy pros, the really fast momentum around AI rules, that state-by-state picture in the U.S., the growing importance of handling those SRRs properly, and yeah, definitely more enforcement coming. Yeah.
So, with all these huge developments swirling around us, here's a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Reflecting on all this, how might your own approach to managing your personal data change in the coming year? What proactive steps might you think about taking to exercise your rights to better protect your own information in this, well, increasingly privacy-focused digital world?
It's definitely something worth thinking about as we all try to navigate this.
TechDaily.ai, your source for technical information. This deep dive is sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyper-converged in VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox cluster, AI servers, SA365, a turnkey security appliance, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com.